Hey everyone and welcome to today's replay, and today we're looking at the KV-1. Now the KV-1 is the tier 5 Soviet heavy tank, one of two tier 5 heavy tanks in the Russian tree, the other one being the KV-1S and the KV. So it's probably one of the most popular tanks in the game currently, and there's a good couple of reasons for that. One, it's got 4 tier 10 Russian heavy tanks leading to it: the IS-4, the IS-7, the 277 and the 705A. All, well, at least 2 of them are very strong heavy tanks. And also, historically this tank does have its place. So at the start of Operation Barbarossa, which was the German invasion of the Soviet Union during the Second World War, the Red Army had a small number of KV-1s and T-34s to mention it, and needless to say, the Germans had a nasty shock when they started meeting these tanks on the battlefield. None of their purpose-built anti-tank guns, so the 37mm and the 5cm, could not do anything to this tank frontally. It was completely impervious to their tank mounted weapons, and well, good luck trying to shoot this thing, even with some of the tier 3s in this game which historically met this tank. And yeah, the only gun that was capable of penetrating it frontally was the 88mm anti-aircraft gun, which got the Germans thinking to mount this 88mm gun on a tank, and the seeds that were sown in that idea, we all know what happens with that, and that was to lead on to the Tiger. So this tank saw extensive action. Thousands were produced in the first half of the war. For example, during the siege of Leningrad, where the factory was, sometimes these tanks would roll off the production line straight into action, and it really captured what the Great Patriotic War was to the Russians. So the armour, this tank basically helped at least stall the invasion of the Soviet Union. And once it was clear that the Russians was going to, once it was clear that the war was going well for the Russians and they started going on the offensive, it was clear that this tank was a more defensive tank than offensive. It was basically a more expensive, heavier T-34. It mounted the same gun as the earlier T-34 versions, so the tank didn't see too much action after the 1943 period, where it was completely replaced by the IS and the T-34. So the KV-1 in game, not only is it probably one of the best tier 5s in the game, it stands as in that position where quite a few new players, this will be their first tier 5, and it's probably one of the best tanks in the game for teaching new players about angling their armour and using their hit points for trading. And a clever player in this will recognise the fact that this has got one of the best guns at tier 5. It's just such a good balance between alpha damage, rate of fire, so you can, when you fight effectively, you can really outtrade your opponents. And that's a really important skill to learn in World of Tanks. You need to learn how to outtrade your opponents and use your armour, even if they're firing gold, because you can put off the occasional bounce. And we've done that to effectiveness in this game, because we managed to knock out M6 and a T-34A5M. We've bounced more than our hit points worth in damage, and we've picked up 1800 with 400 assistance, which is a very nice result in a tier 5 heavy tank. So that's the KV1, probably one of the best tier 5s in the game. And yeah, let's have a look at the post game stats. So here we are. Of course, we pick up the Ace Tanker, and we rig the Brothers in Arms, and we also get a high caliber. We pick up 1,168 base experience for the Ace Tanker, which is a tier 5. It will always have quite a low Ace Tanker value. And we also managed to pick up 14,000. This is because we fired quite a few premium rounds in this game because T-3485M. And yeah, that's the replay, and that's the KV1. But definitely one of the best tanks at tier 5, and I would recommend it to any new player in World of Tanks. And it's also quite a decent tank for experienced players as well. So that's the replay. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a like, and I'll see you on the next one.